I think there was a lot of deliberation with our city council to determine whether or not it was an establishment we would want to open within our city. And after a lot of discussion, it was the determination of the council that we would move forward with allowing legislation or creating legislation to allow for these establishments.
Was it a combination of social health issues, business, like what were the factors involved in the decision?
I think there was a concern for the type of establishment, how it would be regulated, the concerns with the products getting in the hands of children. So I think there was a lot of deliberation on that. I think there were also discussions on the social benefit and how our regulations could safeguard a lot of the concerns that the council had. I believe we've addressed the issues. We are, of course, going into committee on July 1st, where we will discuss more in depth the proposed changes and receive direction from council. We've been briefing them on our regulations, and they've been providing some of their feedback. So there could be some changes that will be directed by council on July 1st. Well, within state law, they put in certain distance requirements to what I would assume are protected uses, residential churches, schools, churches. We've increased some of those regulations just to provide for some more buffer from those uses. And we've also put distance requirements between dispensaries. Our current draft allows for the distance of a mile to be waived by City Council if they determine that there are appropriate reasons to allow for locations to be closer than a mile.
What can we expect these brick and mortar businesses to look like?
We expect them to look like professional businesses that are no different than any other businesses that exist within Henderson. We want them to blend into the community and be professional, not have any outrageous signage that would be associated with the use itself.
Which is, in my experience, when these came up in California, I was living in Venice at the time, and they had...
And that's what I was alluding to.
Right. A pretty extreme flaunting of the medical designation. So we're looking for something completely opposite of that.
Completely opposite.
I see.
We are having some discussions in the about the regulation of advertisement, and there's some discussion that we may make some changes that would allow for more advertisement than what's proposed within the regulations. There's a feeling that if it's a business that's located within the city, then we should treat them like any other business. So we're looking into possibly making some changes.
How much money revenue is being projected that this can produce?
We're anticipating anywhere between $300,000 to $500,000 annually, but that's not net. We're not sure of the cost of enforcing these businesses and regulating these businesses. So we don't know really what the net earnings will be, but we're anticipating gross $300,000 to $500,000.
You mentioned earlier that it is still a federal crime to possess, distribute marijuana, and it's kind of an interesting situation where the states are, essentially ignoring that regulation. How does that play out in practical terms, in terms of what you're doing here?
Well, that is why we're requiring applicants to provide the indemnity fee, so that if there are incidents that occur after they establish their businesses that helps the city towards any legal expense. We are also providing some distance requirements that are referenced in some of the federal justice law for the distribution of drugs within proximity to public facilities. So we're trying our best to safeguard any situations that could occur.
And right now it appears as though the trend is it increasing these, and the Justice Department is a little bit hands-off. But Justice Department personnel changes with administration changes. And do these, is there kind of like a sort of Damocles above these businesses and even possibly the cities, if the Justice Department so desired?
And that could happen.
Yeah.
We don't know.
Right. These businesses may operate much like some of the 40 or so massage establishments. In the sense that the service, they're really offering a legal service or product as a pretext, but much of the money will be from a vice, misuse, prescriptions that are erroneous or unneeded. How much of a concern is that for you, for the city, and what have you guys done to try to address it?
You know, we're hoping that that is something that is going to be regulated by the state. It is very difficult to control an individual getting a prescription for medical marijuana when they don't need it. So the abuse side of it would be very difficult for us to monitor.
One of the ways that was funded in Venice, I noticed, was that in many of the facilities, they would hire a physician to be a on-site physician, would make an assessment on-site, write prescription, which would then be filled immediately. Don't know if that's even possible to regulate that. Is that something that you guys have considered or discussed?
We really tried to follow state law as far as the regulations. My understanding is there's no provision that requires that. We have not added any additional provisions over and above state law when it pertains to that.
Where you've got kind of medical allowances, the arguments become more intense for recreational use. We've seen that in Colorado already.
Yes.
And other places. For better or worse, has the city discussed those issues going forward?
We have not. We're assuming that if there's changes to state law that allows for recreational, that'll be an opt-in ability as opposed to an opt-out, and that the city will have at that time the opportunity to discuss and dialogue and deliberate on whether or not they would want to introduce recreational marijuana sales within the city limits. Do a drug test of an employee and find any drugs within their system, then we will have to deal with that accordingly. We would not give an exception to marijuana because it is a drug, and to operate any vehicles or to work within the city, the expectation is that you will not be on drugs, whether it's prescription medication that can impair you or prescription marijuana.
There's still a lot of duality to this, I take it.
There is.
Yeah. Okay. Very good. City Manager, thank you so much.
All right.
Appreciate
Thank
it.
you.